Hello, everyone. Well, I think I need to start after being in downtown Las Vegas for 48 hours. I need to start by just proclaiming my love for downtown Las Vegas. I have been here for such a short time, and I already am so incredibly inspired by everyone in this room, your ideas, your ambition, but also the way that you are all about giving and contributing. And I hope that in this short time that we're together, I can contribute and share a tool that you can then contribute to your community that can help with anxiety and stress and even physical pain. So you guys all up for that? To learn a new technique? Well, many of you, when I start talking about this, will be skeptical, and I hope that you are skeptical. I think it's very healthy to be skeptical. I learned this strange technique, tapping, when I was very sick. I had the flu. This was about 5 years ago, and I was in my bed, surrounded with tissues, watching Seinfeld with foggy eyes, and my sinuses were awful. And I'm very close with both my brothers, and my brother Nick came in, and he's like, "Hey, I heard you have the flu," and I just couldn't get rid of it. Everybody knew that I was just out for the count. And he's like, "I have this technique. It's kind of strange, but why don't you give it a try?" Now, you don't know is that my family, we like to play pranks on each other. We always try to see how far we can go. So at first I was open to it, and then we start tapping on different points of my face and my body, and I get to the top of the head point, and I think he's gonna start telling me to make a monkey sound. I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, "No, please give this a try." So I begin to talk. I just begin to express how I feel. And I begin to talk about the symptoms that I'm feeling. And I begin to stimulate these different meridian points on my face and body. And all of a sudden, I well up with tears, and I look at him, and I say, "I don't want to get better." Not a thought I ever had before. Didn't know this. I just said, "I don't want to get better." He goes, "Why?" And he just came out with a book, and he simplifies the story. I gave him a hard time. But it was because I had to paint my other brother's room because I was so broke, and I was so upset. And it wasn't just about painting his room. It's what having to do all these other jobs to just survive meant for me. It was what it felt like to have the pressure of wanting to be an entrepreneur and putting a lot of stress and pressure on myself and feeling like I was giving everything and nothing was working. And what was happening was I was constantly stressing my body, because I felt too that's what an entrepreneur is. Like, you're responsible for everything, so you have to be stressed out or else you don't really care. So I had all these preconceived notions about stress and what it was or what I needed to do to be successful. And so we begin tapping, and instead I moved to talking and saying, "I'm angry at life because I thought if I took this leap of faith, everything would work out, and nothing is working out, and all of this pressure is on me." And I just kept verbalizing what I was feeling, and I felt this shift, not just in my emotions, but in my core. I felt like I was almost just vomiting these emotions, really getting them out, not getting caught up in the story of why nothing was working, but having this emotional release. And I took a deep breath in, and I noticed that my sinuses had cleared up. And I couldn't believe it. And so at that time, I had my dad close by, and I ran and I started showing everybody just the fact that I could breathe, because I spent days not being able to breathe. And that was my first introduction to this really strange technique, which I never thought I'd make a documentary film about. What ended up happening was I started using it for this. I started using it through a breakup, through a headache. And the results were so unbelievable that my brother and I teamed up, and we said, the reality is it's hard to believe that something this simple works when you just explain it to someone. So let's show people. We took 10 people who've never heard about the technique, who had different physical and emotional challenges that they were facing, and we brought them to a place in Connecticut for 4 days, and we filmed the results, and they have been incredible. And since then, we've been doing online events, and Sean Stevenson taught me that when you brag, you should always ask permission, because it's not, you're always like, you should brag, but you should just give people a warning. I'm bragging about my brother, so I was okay, but his book, The Tapping Solution, just became a New York Times bestseller. And thank you. I didn't even write it, but I'll take the applause. It was based on the film that we made together and the results that people are getting. So I want you all to leave and know how to do this so you can begin to do this yourself. Let me explain quickly how it works. So what we're doing is we're talking about how we're feeling while we're stimulating these different points in the body. Now, when we started the film, we didn't have much research around why it worked. And so our best guess was looking at Chinese acupuncture, which is what it's based in. And the reality is there's not that much science even around acupuncture, even though many insurance companies are now covering it and it's becoming mainstream. But since the movie and since the kind of movement has picked up, there's been a lot more research about how stimulating these points actually begins to lower the cortisol in your body. Now, cortisol is the stress hormone. So when you're very stressed, you begin to have this overproduction of cortisol. And that creates a lot of problems. That creates this weight gain, it creates strain in your muscles, it's linked to just different headaches and different ailments. And so what we're doing here, the reason why it can also, tapping can work on physical challenges, is that we're constantly underestimating the impact that stress is having on our body. I think we think living healthy just means eating well and exercising, and we're completely missing the fact that we've begun to participate in a culture that says if you're not stressed, you don't care. If you're not busy, you're not doing enough. And I definitely see that there's something changing and people are realizing that doesn't work. And so when you begin to tap on these meridian points, it begins to send a calming signal to the brain, letting your brain know that it's safe to relax. Because when you have a threat, whether it is a real threat or just a perceived threat, there is a part of your brain called the amygdala that begins to fire off that fight or flight response. Now, this was brilliant when our ancestors needed to react really quickly to physical danger. It's brilliant now when we're walking to our car and we're noticing the sounds and we need to be able to react very quickly. But what happens is we get a phone call and we get some bad news. That deal didn't go through, there was a setback, that contract wasn't approved. And all of a sudden, that amygdala brain begins to fire off the fight or flight response. So you have an overproduction of cortisol, blood drains from your brain out into your extremities to get ready to fight or to flee. The challenge is we're doing neither of these things. We're just holding on to the stress and having this really unhealthy and unbalanced hormones and chemicals running through our body. And so what we want to do is we want to be able to speak that thought. But by tapping on these points, sending that signal to your brain, letting your brain know that even with that thought, you are physically safe. And what you'll find happens is that you can have the same thought, but you're not going to have the physical response. And that makes all the difference. Because it's not always the thought that's impacting us. It's the way that we feel, and we know this. We feel it in our gut or in our chest. And we intuitively know these points as well. Many people, when they're stressed, they go like this. They go like this. They go like this, stimulating all of those meridian points. So would you guys all like to learn how to do this? It's very simple. Yeah, so I'll teach you where the tapping points are. So first, let me walk you through the points. And I can't see you all very well, but as I explain them, I want you to find them on your own body. If your partner is not doing it, give them a nudge and have them participate, because I can't see. So the very first point is the karate chop point. So it's on the side of the hand. Now, it doesn't matter what side of the body that you tap on. You can tap on both or one or the other. So this is the first point. Then the second point is the eyebrow point. So just take your fingers and tap where the hair of your eyebrow begins. Right there, perfect. Then follow that point until you're on the side of the eye, staying on that bone. You guys got it. Then underneath the eye, right on the bone. Underneath the nose, between the lip and the nose. Then is the chin point, which is actually the crease between your lip and your chin. Your collarbone point. Now you can find this by finding the U shape in your throat and going 1 inch down and 1 inch to the left or the right. Or you can just take the palm of your hand if you're unsure, and you can tap on your chest and you're going to stimulate that point. Then the next point is the under the arm part. So for women, it's easy for us because it's really right where your bra lies. And for men, it's a hand width from your armpit. And then this is the part, which I always call the monkey part, but it's the top of the head where a lot of the meridians connect. We do a lot of work with children, and this is when they start making the monkey sounds. So those are the basic points. Now you start the process by doing the setup statement. The setup statement is, even though, and you state the problem, so even though I'm stressed out about this deal, even though I have this headache, it could be a physical symptom or it could be a stress, whatever you're feeling, you state the feeling and then you say, I accept myself and how I feel, or I love and accept myself. Now this is when people, especially in like the tech world, I get some of you aren't in the self-help stuff, this is weird. Like, why would I ever say that I accept something that I want to get rid of? It seems counterintuitive, but really it's our inability to accept where we are that keeps us stuck in place. By being able to just simply say, I accept how I feel, it sets us up for the process. It gives us that space to be more honest with ourselves and to stop fighting ourselves. Because the challenge is that we get frustrated with ourselves, and we get frustrated about being frustrated because we think we have to be happy all the time. So we continue to build up these emotions. Can people relate to this when you're frustrated at being frustrated, and it's like this endless cycle? So by saying this affirmation, we've just found that it really helps people tune in. Now the rest of the time, you tap while saying how you feel. It's not about pretty language. It's not about being, saying something profound. It's about being honest. A lot of us are complaining anyway. So let's complain while we begin to stimulate these points so that that story isn't triggering us anymore and we don't have the same desire and need to keep retelling it. So you tap on the rest of the points by simply saying how you feel. Now let's all tap together and have an experience for this. I love focusing on pain because the thing about emotions, one of the things we do before tapping is we have people say on a scale of 1 to 10 how intense the feeling is. And one of the reasons is because we often get, I call it like happiness amnesia, or once you feel better, you separate yourself as to how far you've come. So it's really great to measure your progress and to see how you're getting better. The great thing about pain is that it's more noticeable than an emotion. So I'd like everybody just kind of like move your shoulders around a little bit and just notice if you have any tension, whether it might be your lower back or your neck, or maybe you have a challenge you've been dealing with for a while, your knee's been hurting. And if you don't feel any stress in your body, think about a stress in your life. Think about something that's just been kind of gnawing at the back of your mind a little bit. And I want you to give it a number on a scale of 1 to 10. Okay, 10 being the most intense, when you barely feel it. And we're all going to do some tapping. The best results we find is when people are doing it themselves and they're being honest. So this has to be very general since I'm working with all of you. But when it comes to emotions and stress, I think a lot of us definitely have some things in common. So let's start tapping on the karate chop point and say out loud, even though I have this tension in my body, I accept myself and how I feel. Even though I have this tension in my body, I accept myself and how I feel. I'm going to say it one more time. Even though I have this tension in my body, I accept myself and how I feel. So tapping on the points, focusing on the feeling, this tension in my body. Side of the eye, this strain in my body. Under the eye, all this pressure in my body. Under the nose, all this pressure in my life. Chin, this weight in my body. Collarbone, this pressure in my life. Under the arm, feeling this pressure. Under the top of the head, being aware of it. Eyebrow point, it is safe to let it go. Side of the eye, I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. Under the eye, and it's safe for me to relax. Under the nose, relaxing now. Releasing this tension. Collarbone, it's safe to relax. Under the arm, I am okay. Under the top of the head, I'm where I'm meant to be. Okay, take a deep breath in. Exhale. And as you might have, well, who there just from, again, very quick 2 rounds felt a shift in their body, whether it's in their shoulders? Anyone feel a little bit different, move around? So what we want to do is to continue tapping, continue going through the process. As you notice, I said some positive things. Now, this is when it comes to saying something positive, the best advice I can give you is don't say anything that never feels true. So if you are really stressed out, all you have to do is tap. If you're in the car and you suddenly get rear-ended and you are in that panic state, all you need to do is begin to stimulate those points to start to be able to relax and see a shift. And what we found is that that anxiety doesn't come back. Do we have different anxiety in our life? Yes. Do we have different aspects of a problem? Definitely. A lot of times it's about being persistent. But we found this to have really lasting results. And we, in the documentary, followed 6 months later, and after documenting people who had chronic back pain, and they realized that the stress that they've had around that pain has contributed to that pain. And it's not that this technique cures anything, but what it does is by releasing the stress, you're allowing your body to do what it's meant to do, and your body is meant to heal itself. It's meant to be constantly be able to recover and go back into balance. And so I hope that this is a technique that you keep doing. I also want to mention that I have a bunch of the books that I was talking about. So if any of you guys want one of these books or know someone that you feel like is very stressed that could benefit from this, please grab a book, because I brought a bunch of free ones. So I think, I have 2 minutes?
2 questions.
2 questions.
2 minutes, I'll tap.
2 minutes, all right, let's go. All right, so any questions? Yes.
Your brother got the technique from where?
So I did say he found it online, and so there was actually a big community of people. There was a psychologist of the name of Dr. Roger Callahan who began, in his practice, he began to study acupressure points, and so he mapped out all these different algorithms of what points to tap on for different anxieties. And then this other man, Gary Craig, came about and found an easier algorithm, 9 points that he found that were getting the most results. And so really when we made the documentary film, there was already a massive community of people that were doing it. But like I said, they all felt kind of alone because they were getting great results, but it was hard to share it. And so the movie and the film and our work, our goal was to help to share it with more communities. And we've been doing not just coming back to what we're talking about this week and giving back, we also do a lot of work in Rwanda with different orphanages, because this is such an amazing technique that if you don't have the ability to have a therapist, which obviously I believe in therapy and that you should find a therapist, but the reality is we don't always have access to mental health practitioners. And so to be able to give people a stress relief technique, we've found great results. Any other questions? Yes, back there.
About how many, is it tied into the number of taps at each spot?
That's a great question. It's not about the amount of taps. We tend to stay on one spot until you finish the phrase and kind of go to the next one. I really believe in being intuitive, and you'll notice as you begin to tap, you might even find that you'll have a spot that is even more, it's sore. You can feel it, and you can even stay on that a little bit longer. But usually it's around 6 to 8 taps. Yes. All right, thank you so much.